You're not allowed to say that people should lose weight.
James Bianco joins us right now, president and founder of Bianco Research, cut and chiseled as always. Jim Bianco, the chairman, has some serious messaging to do. It's not going to be about his weight. It's not even going to be about portfolio management for presidents and governors. What will be the chairman's message here and towards that important Fed meeting?
He's going to try and push back on the widely bubbling narrative that inflation is something more than transitory, and that the Fed needs to start to move much faster than we thought even 30 or 60 days ago. I don't think he wants to go there, but the market seems to be kind of nudging him in that direction. So he's going to try and, stop that trend towards inflation's a bigger problem. We have to start thinking about either tapering faster or maybe more rate hikes at the second half of 2022.
Hey, Jim, people love to say we're testing the credibility of the central bank. Let me ask you that question. Do you think we are at the moment? Do you think something's building here?
Yeah, something is building, but I don't think it's the test of the central bank. I've always thought that there's this dance between what officials at the central bank want to see happen and what the market wants to see happen. And sometimes they are perfectly in a line, like they were earlier this year about transitory inflation, and sometimes they're not. And that might be what we're seeing right now. So it's not as much testing their credibility as it is the market's raising its hand and saying, hey, Chairman Powell, we might have a little different opinion about things than you do, and our opinion matters too, and let's kind of come to a consensus on where we're supposed to go.
We like to pick out these little points of tension in markets, and without getting too in the weeds about this, Ed Al-Husseini of Columbia Threadneedle was on the show with us about an hour ago, Jim, and he said he can't reconcile what's happening at the front end, more interest rate hikes, or what's happening at the long end, higher inflation expectations. Can you reconcile those two things, Jim?
I agree with him that it is a little bit unusual, but the best answer you could possibly give is the market is getting more worried that we are in some kind of a longer-term inflation rise. And if so, then it's thinking that the Fed may have to start to respond to inflation by raising rates. That is something we haven't seen in over a generation in the market. And if it happens, if that's indeed what we're going down, that's not a good scenario, because risk markets like stocks won't like the idea that the Fed has been removed from the situation because they have to respond to inflation. If they don't respond to inflation, the bond market won't like it. Yeah. That's why I said he's got to push back against that narrative.
Well, Jim, let's talk about the differences between what we're seeing in the bond market and the stock market as well, because when it comes to volatility in fixed income, it remains high. You can see that evident in the MOVE index, and yet we have a VIX this morning at a sub-15 handle. We're at 1493. How do you make sense of all that calm in the equity market that is far absent in other asset classes?
Well, first, mechanically, the VIX does move inversely with the market. So when you're making new all-time highs, you should expect it to go down. But your point is well taken that volatility is very low. I've been one that's thought that the stock market has been driven by one thing: flows. Every day, the market opens. Every day, people have excess cash in their checking accounts, which we now know is a record, and it's making its way into index funds. And that's why you see the S&P relentlessly go up, and not so much with the Russell 2000 because it's not as popular an index product as well, too. So as long as that cash flow continues to move, the market goes up, and that dampens the volatility on it. The bond market, like I said, it's struggling with the question about whether or not inflation is something more than transitory, and that's why you see the volatility there.
So as what you just said about flows basically buy the dip is going to continue to happen and continue to work?
Yeah, I think it will until something changes that dynamic. And again, that can be inflation goes to the point where the Fed has to raise rates, they're out. If the stock market corrects, they're not coming back. If you got to that point, that could change the dynamic. We're not there now. We might be creeping in that direction, but that's for a story for another day.
Is Chairman Powell going to be there next year? And Jim, you and I get to talk privately sometimes, and I'd like to share your thoughts with our audience this morning. You think the chairman is a bargaining chip with progressives going forward from here? Jim, can you give me some insight here to how you think this develops in the coming months?
Yeah, what we're learning is that it's harder to get an agreement among a party. The Republicans had this in 2017. The Democrats have this now. There's a debate going on between the moderates and the progressives about what they should be doing about the budget, to infrastructure, to the debt ceiling. And we've got some progressives like Liz Warren who are dead set against Chairman Powell. So to have an agreement you're going to have to give them something. And you have to give them something substantial. And they've already made it known something substantial would be Lael Brainerd as Federal Reserve Chairman. So I think one of the reasons that maybe we have not heard Jay Powell's name being submitted for renomination, even though Janet Yellen months ago said she was in favor of it, and obviously advising the president, is I think he's a bargaining chip. If needed, in order to get these deals done, that they'll offer him up for Lael Brainerd, and we'll see what happens with the negotiations over the next couple of weeks.
Some people might view this as highly speculative stuff, Jim. How does it help you?
It is.
I'm trying to understand what it means for next year. What does it mean for next year if that's the case?
Well, just leaving Chairman Powell off the equation, you're going to probably have a new vice chairman. Rich Clarida's term expires in January. Randy Quarles is no longer supervision chairman. He's a regular governor. He'll probably leave in the next coming months. There's an open seat. Boston and Dallas need to get new presidents. What does it mean for next year? Whatever your opinion is about the voting mixture of the Fed right now, we might not even know who 5 or 6 of the members are on the Fed in 5 or 6 months. So there could be a completely different complexion on the Fed coming with a huge change of personnel.
Hey, Jim, love catching up with you, buddy. As always, Jim Bianco there of Bianco Research on this Federal Reserve, Tom, on this bond market too.